At 70 years old, Mel Gibson stands at a strange crossroads, a place between legend and loneliness. A man once celebrated as Hollywood's golden son now walks a quieter path. A man who once commanded audiences with charm, passion, and fire now carries the heavy burden of regret, controversy, and reflection. This is the heartbreaking story of Mel Gibson, a story of brilliance shadowed by pain, of fame that turned into isolation, and of a man who, despite everything, continues to live under the long shadow of his own past. It all began far from the glittering lights of Los Angeles, in Peekskill, New York, on January 3, 1956. Mel Columcille Gerard Gibson was the sixth of 11 children. His father, Hutton Gibson, was a strict man with unshakable religious beliefs, and his mother, Anne Patricia, a gentle soul from Ireland, brought warmth to an otherwise turbulent home. When Mel was 12, the family packed up everything and moved across the world to Sydney, Australia. The move wasn't for adventure, it was escape. His father feared the cultural direction of America and believed that Australia would protect his children from the chaos he saw coming. In Australia, young Mel was shy, soft-spoken, uncertain, and often teased for his American accent. No one could have predicted that this quiet boy would one day dominate global cinema. But fate had a strange plan. After high school, Mel followed his sister's suggestion and applied to the National Institute of Dramatic Art in Sydney, NIDA. It was there that something awakened in him. Acting wasn't just a skill, it was therapy. It was a way to be anyone but himself, to escape the fear, the insecurity, and the weight of his father's expectations. And when director George Miller cast him in Mad Max 1979, the world witnessed the birth of a new kind of movie star, raw, rugged, intense, and unpredictable. Mel Gibson became the face of an era that demanded energy, masculinity, and madness. But what the audience didn't see was the man behind the mask, a man fighting silent battles. The fame was intoxicating but unstable. Gibson once said that fame comes with a price: your peace, your privacy, and your soul. Through the early 1980s, success became routine. Gallipoli, The Year of Living Dangerously, Lethal Weapon, each role elevating him, each success isolating him further. Hollywood crowned him as favorite action hero, but inside, he was slowly unraveling. By his mid-30s, Mel Gibson was already struggling with alcoholism. The pressure, the fame, and the constant scrutiny drove him to the bottle. Friends noticed the changes, the mood swings, the late-night phone calls, the empty look in his eyes. And yet, he kept performing. He hid his pain behind the glare of the spotlight, pretending everything was fine. But even at the height of his success, he confessed that he felt lost. Hollywood only saw the actor. It never saw the man standing on the edge. Then came Braveheart, 1995, a film that would cement his name in history. A story of courage, sacrifice, and freedom, directed, produced, and led by Mel himself. It won 5 Oscars, including Best Director and Best Picture. In that moment, he wasn't just an actor anymore. He was an icon, a man who had conquered the world. But the truth? Behind the smiles, Gibson was exhausted. The alcohol never really left his system. The fame never filled the emptiness. And the applause? It faded faster than the silence that followed it. After Braveheart, Gibson could have walked away as one of the most respected men in cinema, but instead, his inner demons began to grow louder. He once admitted in an interview, "I was standing on a balcony one night, ready to jump. I didn't want to live anymore." It's a chilling confession, a reminder that no amount of success can silence pain left unhealed. Through it all, Robin Moore, his wife of 26 years, stood by him. Together, they had 7 children. For years, she was the anchor that held him steady while his world spun out of control.
The changes, the mood swings, the late-night phone calls, the empty look in his eyes. And yet, he kept performing. He hid his pain behind the glare of the spotlight, pretending everything was fine. But even at the height of his success, he confessed that he felt lost. Hollywood only saw the actor. It never saw the man standing on the edge. Then came Braveheart, 1995, a film that would cement his name in history. A story of courage, sacrifice, and freedom. Directed, produced, and led by Mel himself. It won 5 Oscars, including Best Director and Best Picture. In that moment, he wasn't just an actor anymore. He was an icon, a man who had conquered the world. But the truth? Behind the smiles, Gibson was exhausted. The alcohol never really left his system. The fame never filled the emptiness. And the applause? It faded faster than the silence that followed it. After Braveheart, Gibson could have walked away as one of the most respected men in cinema. But instead, his inner demons began to grow louder. He once admitted in an interview, "I was standing on a balcony one night, ready to jump. I didn't want to live anymore." It's a chilling confession, a reminder that no matter the amount of success, can silence pain left unhealed. Through it all, Robin Moore, his wife of 26 years, stood by him. Together they had 7 children. For years, she was the anchor that held him steady while his world spun out of control. But even love has limits. By the early 2000s, the cracks in his marriage began to show. Gibson's temper, fueled by alcohol and internal conflict, became impossible to ignore. The man who once played heroes on screen had become a stranger at home. Then came the project that would change everything. The Passion of the Christ, 2004. A film that split the world in two. Loved by millions, condemned by others. Gibson poured his heart, his faith, and his pain into that film. It became one of the most successful independent movies ever made, grossing over $600 million worldwide. But instead of healing him, the controversy only deepened his isolation. Critics accused him of anti-Semitism. Hollywood distanced itself. Friends turned silent. Gibson had gone from golden boy to pariah. And so began the descent, the part of his life few people truly understand.
Candlelight, exile, and silence. After 2006, Mel Gibson entered a kind of Hollywood exile. Studios refused to work with him. Talk show hosts mocked him. Even longtime friends avoided public association. For years, the man who once commanded the world's biggest stages couldn't find a stage at all. And in that silence, he began to face the one thing he had avoided all his life: himself. He retreated from Los Angeles, spending time in his private home in Costa Rica and his ranch in Malibu. He avoided interviews. He stayed away from cameras. He didn't try to explain anymore because he knew no one wanted to listen. But isolation does strange things to a man who once had millions watching him. At first, it feels like punishment. Then it becomes reflection. And eventually, redemption begins to whisper, very quietly. Brain, the battle within. Mel Gibson was not only battling public hatred, he was fighting internal wars, addiction, anger, and depression. He once said in a 2016 interview, "I hit the wall. I was looking at a kind of death. I didn't want to live anymore." It was a chilling confession from a man who once embodied strength. Behind every tabloid headline was a deeper truth, a human being drowning in guilt and self-loathing. The same intensity that made Gibson a great actor now turned against him. He could remember every mistake, every insult, every loss in painful detail. He was haunted by what he had become. The public saw a scandal, But inside, Mel Gibson saw a man who had destroyed everything he loved: faith, guilt, and forgiveness. Faith had always been central to Mel's identity. He was known for his deep Catholic beliefs, even before the Passion of the Christ. But now that same faith became his anchor and his torment. He believed in forgiveness, yet struggled to forgive himself. He went to church, prayed alone, sought counsel, and read scripture. He once said, "You can't live in hatred of yourself forever. At some point, you either heal or you vanish." Those words revealed the essence of Gibson's journey, a man torn between belief and brokenness. He knew forgiveness wasn't something the public would give him. It was something he'd have to earn, quietly, over time. Puzzle: rebuilding the man. Slowly, Gibson began to rebuild his life, not as a superstar, but as a father, artist, and human being. He focused on his children, 9 of them, and found comfort in simple things: painting, carpentry, long walks,
He
and
took
faith.
responsibility. He stopped drinking for long stretches. He started therapy and opened up to those who still cared. But the scars of his past never disappeared. Even when he smiled, there was always a trace of sorrow, the kind that comes from deep regret. Hollywood had moved on. New faces, new stars, new heroes. But Mel Gibson remained frozen in time, a relic of a generation that both loved and lost him. The comeback that almost didn't happen. For nearly a decade, Gibson stayed behind the camera, working on small projects that most people never saw. He was like a ghost director, present but unseen. Then came 2016, and with it, a glimmer of light: Hacksaw Ridge. The war drama, directed by Gibson, was a masterpiece. Powerful, emotional, deeply human. It earned 6 Oscar nominations and won 2. Suddenly, the world remembered. This man is a genius. Even critics who had once canceled him couldn't deny the film's brilliance. The industry whispered about a comeback. But Hollywood never forgets, and it rarely forgives. Despite the success, Gibson didn't receive the same red carpet warmth as before. He was praised, but not embraced. Celebrated, but cautiously. It was as if the world wanted his art, but not him. The price of a stained name. By now, Mel Gibson was in his 60s, wiser but weary. He lost millions in revenue, countless roles, and much of his reputation. Even when he smiled for cameras, his eyes revealed exhaustion. The exhaustion of fighting a war that never truly ends. Many of his peers who had made similar mistakes were welcomed back with open arms. But for Gibson, forgiveness was slower, colder, and incomplete. Some say it's because his fall was too public. Others believe the industry had simply outgrown him. But the truth is simpler. The world loves to build legends, but it loves tearing them down even more. The quiet years. In recent years, Gibson has chosen peace over fame. He spends his time producing smaller films, mentoring young actors, and staying out of the spotlight. He's found love again, fathered more children, and embraced simplicity. But those who meet him say he's different now, humbler, gentler, more aware of life's fragility. He no longer tries to prove anything to anyone. He doesn't seek the world's approval, because he's learned that it can vanish overnight. As he turned 70, Gibson reflected on his life not as a hero or a villain, but as a man who has lived through both extremes, worship and rejection. And maybe that's what makes his story so human.
A boy lost in shadows. To understand Mel Gibson's heartbreak, you have to go back, long before the fame, long before the movies, to a time when he was just a frightened little boy.
Mel was born in Peekskill, New York in 1956 into a family of 11 children. His father, Hutton Gibson, was intelligent but controversial, a man deeply devoted to faith but also consumed by fear and conspiracy. When Mel was 12, his father lost his job and moved the entire family to Australia. Overnight, the boy who knew American playgrounds found himself in a foreign world with a strange accent and no friends. He was shy, nervous, and deeply insecure. Teachers noticed his anxiety. He'd often go silent in class, avoiding attention. But inside, a storm was already forming. A mix of fear, anger, and a desperate need to prove himself. Those emotions never left him. They just learned to wear better clothes. Fame, success, confidence. The burden of silence. Growing up under a strict father meant that Mel learned to hide emotions, not heal them. Crying wasn't strength. Doubt was not allowed. Weakness was forbidden. So he became what most men in pain do, a performer. He smiled when he was angry. He joked when he was hurt. He worked harder when he felt lost. When Mel entered acting school in Sydney, his teachers saw brilliance, but they also saw something raw, almost painful. He didn't just act pain, he knew it. And that authenticity made audiences connect with him, even when they didn't know why. But the truth is, you can't hide pain forever. If you don't heal it, it becomes part of you. And eventually, it speaks louder than you do. The fragile mind behind the fame. By the time Mel Gibson reached Hollywood stardom, he had built a fortress around himself, one made of discipline, humor, and charisma. But that fortress had cracks. In the early years of his career, Gibson quietly struggled with anxiety and depression. He once told a reporter, "I've had dark moments, really dark. You get to a point where you can't go on, where you think, what's the point?" He wasn't exaggerating. He admitted that in the late 1980s, at the height of his fame, he considered ending his life. The pressure, the loneliness, and the self-hatred became unbearable. And yet, he smiled for the cameras. He delivered lines, won awards, made millions laugh. That's the thing about emotional pain. It hides best in successful people. The dual personality. Psychologists often talk about the public self and the private self, the person we show the world and the person we actually are. Mel Gibson's life became a battle between those two versions. Publicly, he was a fearless action star, the man who charged into battle, saved lives, defied danger. Privately, he was broken, insecure, and deeply afraid of being forgotten.